Hello and welcome to How Do You Drew?
This is a Drew Barrymore podcast brought to you by thedrewseum.com.
And sponsored by our friends at Positive Medium.
I'm Anne.
And I'm Ashley.
And hello.
Hello. Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome back. This is a fun one. We haven't had one like this for a while, but I also just want to say at the top, we are now officially bi-weekly. So welcome to episode 82. Let's jump into some stuff before we get to jump into our interview with one of Drew's staff members from the Drew Barrymore Show. If you've seen the title, you know.
If you somehow skip the title, surprise is coming.
So, what do we have for our Deja Drew's tidbits? What are we calling this section now?
Okay, well, this is our friend Brian, always coming through with the cool info. Like, Brian always seems to bring the little nuggets of info that we somehow miss, because occasionally we do miss stuff, guys. So he became a Patreon member. So thank you so much for that, Brian, first of all.
Thank you, Brian.
And he was listening to one of our episodes that we have over there, those exclusive episodes. Go check them out if you're not doing that already, people.
Yeah.
And we were talking about John Barrymore's estate, his home or whatever you want to call it. It really is like an estate. And he messaged us to say, hey, you guys didn't mention this, but I'm sure you know it. But just in case, do you know who bought this estate when it sold in 2021? I was floored by this information. It was purchased by Mick G, director of Charlie's Angels, our buddy. I can say that, right? We've met him 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have said over the years, like, our buddy Mick G, maybe not on the podcast much. We probably haven't talked about our encounters with him very many times.
Yeah, we probably haven't.
But we've had the chance to meet him twice.
3 times.
Oh my God, 3?
So
just remind me really quick.
Yeah, I'll do it real quick.
Yeah.
On the set of Full Throttle when they were filming on Hollywood Boulevard.
Because we just went there and knew they were filming. We didn't have an invitation.
Even though he's the director, he was just like walking down the street, super approachable. So nice. Then we also went to I think it was a Q&A at the ArcLight for Charlie's Angels that he was at.
Oh, of course. Okay. How could I forget about that one?
But then the best time is when we went to see Confessions of a Dangerous Mind just at a random movie theater. Yeah. And we turned around and he was like 2 rows behind us in the theater.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Didn't we stop and say hello after the movie?
And he was so cool. And I always remember that he said that it was so fun to see Drew and Sam on screen playing Scrabble again, because they do that in both movies.
Yes, that was so fun. So yes, we've had a couple encounters.
But how amazing that he's the one that bought it. And I love to think that now Drew has an opportunity to go there.
Oh, I didn't even think about that part. But just, this is from what year? 2021?
Yeah.
I love, there's a couple lines in the article that you had linked to, but one of them said, energetically, I think we knew he was the buyer within seconds of him coming through the house. I think it was this connection that got us through the whole deal. The connection to the Barrymores. Like, they literally were like, of course he was excited about that.
Well, and McG always brings the energy.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
He's probably like, this is the greatest house I've ever seen in my life. Yeah.
Also, should we tease a little bit that we're going to be talking about Charlie's Angels on another podcast soon, or should we not mention that yet?
Ooh, yeah. That's it. We'll just dangle that little thread right there.
Okay. So we will be talking about Charlie's Angels very soon with another fun podcast that we've been affiliated with previously. So we'll give you more info on that soon.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so now let's jump into Drew Loves. What did she proclaim her love for over the past couple weeks since we last spoke?
I love love.
Okay, there's not that much new because we're in this weird summer hiatus that's happening pretty soon here, but I've got a few for you guys.
Okay.
So Drew loves a tassel. There was a whole dance that went along with that and a little da 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 da.
Of course.
She loves museums. And I was like, oh, thanks. You love the museum. She loves being a part of finding out what the viral food trends are all about.
I love that. You had to have all that in there. Yeah.
Yeah. She loves a baked potato bar or a Cobb salad bar. And then finally, she loves a bologna sandwich. which made me think of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. But I thought it was interesting because she said, like, even though she grew up vegetarian, when she'd go to her friends' houses, she would like sneak little bites of meat in their fridge. And I was like, oh my God, even back then she was a rebel.
But it's so funny because like you and I was vegetarian for a really long time. I'm pescatarian now. We've talked about this before, but like you have this like, no, there's no reason for me to eat meat. Like that's just never no interest. Even, no. Yeah. But I grew up like really liking meat. So I do have like memories of certain things. And I loved bologna.
Oh, interesting.
And I remember it. And now that I eat fish again, I'm like eating tuna sandwiches again. And I'm just like, yeah, I loved these when I was 9 and I love them at 39. All right. So what did you pull for the Druism of the week?
You know, those cool little isms that we do.
This was an old one. We got a vintage Druism. I was going through some old magazines. I'm transcribing magazines articles from the early 90s. And that's because we're deep in poison ivy research. That is still coming, guys. I promise.
Yes.
Very excited about that.
We've teased it by name and by not name for like a while. We're excited.
Okay. So this was from Interview magazine in 1991.
Okay.
And I just thought this was really funny. She said, I tried to read my family tree once, and it was like looking at a map of Magic Mountain.
What?
There's just a lot going on in that Barrymore family tree.
It was like a map of Magic Mountain. But I was like, what? I like to imagine like what she meant by that metaphor. Like some of their lives are just like roller coasters.
Yeah, definitely could be that.
Yes. Okay, so now we've got some really fun mail.
You've got mail.
You want to introduce it and then we'll talk about it? I didn't even know this was coming.
Yep. So our last episode, we covered the article from Movie Line 1992. Very, very good episode. Very juicy. If you missed that, go listen.
Yes, we had so much fun.
Oh my gosh. And I reached out to the writer, Stephen Rebello, because he also wrote the 94 and 95 Movie Line articles, and he responded.
So that's so cool. So Stephen Rebello wrote to us, thanks very much. Mad respect and admiration for her, as I think and hope those Movie Line profiles show. I just don't know what else I could possibly tell you that I didn't already lay down in print, and it's just so long ago. And super busy lives, we haven't seen each other or spoken in years. You know, I love getting this little bit of connections that we're getting. Like,
yeah, I would love to have him on, but if he's like, I don't know what else to tell you, I get that. It was a long time ago.
Totally. But we're like, the further away it is, the more we want to know. But that's so cool. So we literally got a little message from the writer that we just talked about his article. I love that so much.
Pretty cool.
Absolutely. Okay. So before we get into the actual meat of the episode, as we like to say, what did you pull for Kind Comments Corner for this week?
I pulled a couple this time because there was an Instagram reel that was posted recently. It's a really cute video of Drew at the Boys on the Side press junket in 1995. Mm-hmm. And there were just so many nice comments on it. So I thought we could just read a few real quick.
Okay, cool. So I'll start with this one. Always mentioning the light. Here we go.
Yep.
Keep shining your light, Drew. I've loved watching it in every phase of your life.
Oh. And then another one said, you are an inspiration, the true example of resilience. Great. Love it.
And then another comment was, always making the world a bit more beautiful just by being in it.
Oh,
come on.
And then finally bringing it back to the light, quote, how genuine you are and all the love and light that comes from you is amazing. So nice.
So nice.
Howdy, Droobies.
We want to tell you about our sponsor, Positive Medium. We've actually been clients of theirs for at least 10 years, and they take care of all of our website needs for thedruseum.com.
They offer custom web design and professional coding, search engine optimization, marketing, and hosting. So we've been hosted by them, but we've also been able to take advantage of a lot of their expertise in these other areas as well.
Absolutely. So customer service is the biggest draw for us with this company. They have saved our site literally from obliteration quite a few times. But then they also help us with minor issues in just like literally a matter of minutes. So if we have like a coding question or just like something on the back end we can't figure out, we reach out to them and we get an answer back and the issue is solved within moments.
We're so excited that Positive Medium is allowing us to offer our listeners 25% off managed WordPress hosting plans using our promo code DREW, D-R-E-W, of course. And if you want to take advantage of this, visit positivemedium.com. We really, really vouch for these people. They've been so great to us and will continue to be great to us. I can only imagine.
I mean, they're great by offering this to our listeners. So take advantage. Again, it's promo code DREW, of course.
So now you all are in for a little treat because we have the tailor and costume designer from the Drew Barrymore Show. Matthew Kilgore has worked with Drew's show since the first season, still going strong, going into season 5, continuing to work as the tailor. We had a fun conversation with Matthew. We're so grateful for this opportunity. It's so fun.
Oh my gosh.
I think we figured out it's our 8th interview with somebody who's worked alongside Drew, which we're like,
pretty cool.
So cool for our little podcast.
And we've admired his work since season 1. So it was really cool to get this, as I said, behind the scenes look at how it all works over there and what he does. And he does a lot. It's amazing.
Yes. So listen to us getting in all of the details about what it's like to be a tailor on the Drew Barrymore Show and how he got there. So fun.
Yay.
Enjoy.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Matthew.
How are you?
Great.
Well, how are you?
Great.
So
Hi.
great to meet you. I'm Ashley.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm Anne.
Hi,
And
Anne.
Ashley's the one who's like very active on our social media. So most of the communication you've had is with Ashley.
Okay.
But I'm her co-host, co-mistress of the website.
Everything.
We do everything together.
I love it.
I don't know if you know our background at all, but we can like tell you a little bit about that so you know where we come from. Like,
That'd be great.
okay, so we're already recording. Hello,
Okay.
and thank you
Hi.
for being here. But just so you kind of know like who we are, what our deal is a little bit. So we started the Drewseum. Ashley, I always forget. Is it 2005 or 2006?
2006.
Okay, we've been fans and friends through the internet since 1998. We met on a Drew Barrymore message board. And
As teenagers.
teenagers. And we just stuck with it. You know, there are lots of people that go in and out of fandoms, especially in their teens, but we stuck with it. We became friends, became like best friends, became in-person friends. And then 2 years ago, almost, we started the How Do You Drew podcast, which we're doing now. But the Drewseum started as kind of like, we're like, we have these collections, we have this knowledge. Let's share it with other Drew fans, or as we call them, Drewbies. And so we're just like these. We love her. We're the biggest dorks for her. We're like her archivists, you know, her
historians, I like to say, because it makes it sound more official.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
But we really are. Like, actually, Anne is literally a professional archivist. That's what she does.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So she kind of took this like knowledge and experience in our Drew, because we have like massive collections of like, you know, your continuity binder that you posted.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like we both flipped for that because we have binders like that of like magazine articles,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
documents, and all kinds of things, you know, related to Drew's life. So
Cool.
Yeah. And we're like adults now, and we fancy ourselves as like professionals in this endeavor. And it's a very fun thing. So thank you for being here for our little niche space. We are
I'm
so excited. Yeah. We've been lucky enough to talk to other people who've worked with her. And we always are such a thrill for us because we already love her. We don't need to be convinced, but it's fun to hear about the experiences. So
for sure.
And you're our second, like, I was thinking this is like a dressing Drew series because we talked to Mona May a couple of months ago, or maybe even a year ago, and she was wonderful. I've been trying to get to, do you know Anda and Masha, the stylists?
I don't.
Okay, so they worked with Drew a lot in 2010 and did some of our favorite looks, and they've been really sweet communicating with us. But I'm like, I'm not kidding. We'd like to have you on the pod.
Yeah, of course.
And then of course Lee, we would love to chat with Lee sometime.
Yeah,
but yeah, I just think it's like a fun thing because Drew's style is so, you know, such a big part of her image.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So it's great to hear the people behind the seams.
Yeah, behind the scenes. Yep.
Yes. Thank you for being here. We are excitable dorks. We love her. We love anyone who's surrounded around her because we know how she is about like when people are good, she sticks with them. So like, you know, like we also like You have to be high quality. Like there's no way you're not. And we've seen it.
Well, I feel very lucky to we're going into our 5th season.
It's
I know.
amazing.
So-
I'm like, I keep going, is that right? Could it be
Yeah.
5 years already?
The big
It's
joke is we finished high school and now we're going to college.
Oh, that's
Oh.
cute.
Yeah, yeah,
I love
so-
that.
Yeah,
Getting real serious.
getting real
Yes.
serious. Yeah.
Yes. So let's jump in if you're ready to.
Sure.
So Matthew, tell us about your career trajectory. If you want to tell us about like if where you're from comes into that, and then how you got started into costuming and where you are now. So let us know what you want to share.
Well, I grew up in Indiana, so I'm not from New York originally. And for, the first 40 years of my life, my focus was on theater. And I was an actor. I was a Broadway actor, dancer, musical theater type person.
Amazing.
Awesome.
So I grew up dancing. That was my true passion as a child. But when I started training, I was trained in classical ballet, and classical ballet training's expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, my daughter, whose room I'm in, she's a
Yeah.
ballerina.
Yeah, so
I
you know.
get you.
Yeah.
There's a pile of point shoes down here that's
Amazing.
like worth $600.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
So ballet training's expensive, and my family didn't have the means to truly engulf this passion that I had. And so I was very lucky that the ballet school in my hometown put me on scholarship,
Oh, cool.
Oh, amazing.
as a lot of ballet and just dance schools do in general. When a boy walks in the door and says, I want to dance.
Yeah, they're like, please.
Yeah, please come do anything. And so part of that work study was not only me, but also my mother. We both did kind of everything as part of this like volunteer work study in exchange for classes and training.
Amazing.
And my mom sewed, and my grandmother and mother taught me to sew when I was little. Like every year we made a Halloween costume, and
Oh.
every year it was like, here, go sew this button on. Like, and each year it was like a little bit more learning. And that was just part of the thing.
So it was ingrained in you, kind of.
It was. And my grandma always said, this will come in handy someday. This will come in
She's so
handy.
right.
I think she thought that maybe it would come in handy to like sew buttons on a shirt or something.
Yes.
She didn't know how you're going to take it.
Didn't
to
know
the
how
next
this was going
level.
to turn out.
You could not have
So,
known.
but I grew up being familiar in a sewing room and working on a sewing machine. And so that was part of my work as my work study was I would help with costumes. I would help lay out the floors. I would help like all the things that go into like putting on a production.
And what age range is this, Matthew?
This was like middle school.
Okay.
So I
Oh,
was like
wow. Younger than I thought.
6th to 8th grade, all through high school, really. So I always say that I spent my performing career moonlighting in the costume shop.
I love that. What a great way to put it.
I was doing a lot of costume work on a volunteer / just for fun basis. And when I got to college, that was kind of the same thing. I was a ballet performance major at Butler University, and part of my work study was managing their costume warehouse. And at Butler, I did get to take some formal costume classes. And so I learned how to make classical ballet tutus. I learned how to make classical ballet bodices.
Wow.
Like, I learned a lot about the construction of a garment that has to move well
Yeah.
in a body. And I really credit that training with a lot of my success of what I'm doing now. So, and then like I moved to New York. I spent 20 years working professionally, regionally, on tour. I did a Broadway show. And then when I turned 40, the body was starting to hurt.
Mhm.
I was starting to not love it as much. Like the constant a show closes, you're back to square one. And
Yeah.
Oh.
you have to find the next job. Like it's that
a
gig
hustle.
economy.
Yeah.
And it's just that like you're on a hamster wheel of like, okay, I'm great for now. And then back to square one and you're back to auditioning. And so I made the decision that I didn't want my performing career to end with an injury or just getting so burnt out. I wanted to say, I'm done and I'm happy with what I've done. I'm happy with what I've accomplished. And then it's time to move on to something else. And so that's what I did. In 2018, I said, this is going to be my last show. It was a chorus line. And it was a perfect full circle moment. That was my first show I did in the city.
Aww.
And it was my last show. I was doing it with my fiance, who's now my husband.
Oh, how special is that?
And so it was just, there was a whole lot of like, it felt like the right time to be done. And so I made that decision and then immediately called all of my friends that I'd met moonlighting in the costume world.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm done performing and I'm going to transition into the wardrobe and costume world. And so I really called on all my friends, and within not too long of a period of time, I got hired dressing a Broadway show, which led to another Broadway show, which led me to Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
So I dressed on The Iceman Cometh, Frozen, and then Hamilton.
Amazing.
And Hamilton took me right up until the pandemic.
Okay.
So I took a weekend off to fly to Florida to see my husband in a show. And on the airplane, they made the announcement that Broadway was shut down because of this mystery illness that everyone had. And so COVID, like I never got to have my last show at Hamilton, knowing it was my last show, because it was just like we were there. I got on a plane, Broadway shut down, and I never walked back in the building.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so that kind of led me to right before the start of the Drew Barrymore Show. So
yeah. So did you know Lee or what? How did you?
I did not.
Okay. What was your foot in the door?
This is a really crazy story.
Oh, we love crazy stories.
I truly say that I was somehow meant for this to be my job, because there's no way, once you hear this, that there's no way that had I applied for this job that it would have happened. It was just, there's too many like weird games of telephone in this story. So it was like, I think it was like late July of the COVID year, whichever year that was. I think it was 2020.
2020.
Yeah. And I was sitting on my couch in my studio apartment, like doing the normal like thing we did during COVID, which was just
a lot of nothing.
Sit and watch TV, read, like doing nothing, like trapped in our apartments in New York City. And I got this random call, and this guy named Brian called and said, "Hey, I'm Brian from CBS, and I got your name from this woman named Rebecca."
Okay.
And I said, "Cool." And he was like, "We're staffing up a daytime talk show, and you came highly recommended from Rebecca." And at that time, I was not sure who Rebecca was.
Okay.
You're like, I
said, okay. He said, "Are you available and interested?" And I said, "It's COVID. I'm sitting on my couch. Everyone's available. Yes. Everyone's interested in having a job during COVID." So I said, "Of course." And he said, "I'm going to pass your name through." And he kind of gave me details of the job and didn't tell me what it was.
Okay.
And so we hung up, and I immediately got on Instagram, and I was like, I looked up this person, and I was like, God, I've worked with a lot of people, but I don't know who this person is. So I found her on Facebook and I just sent a message and I said, hey, thank you so much for passing my name along. And I, being careful because you meet so many people in this industry that it was like, maybe I met somebody and they and I honestly don't remember.
You're like, what impression did I make? And how did they
remind me?
Seriously, I was like racking my brain and I was like, I don't know where
how I know you
would have crossed.
Yeah.
And I got a response back and she was like, I actually got your name from my friend Deb.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Deb, I know. Deb, I know. So Deb and I worked together because the last few months of Hamilton, I had started working just part-time at the Today Show.
Okay. Oh.
And so she was on the wardrobe crew there. And so Deb and I were working together. And there was one day that Jenna Bush Hager, they needed a jumpsuit hemmed. And I was around and I was like, I can hem it. And so I did it and got it done and put it back up on the hanger and carried on with my day. Like, it was very nonchalant. And so Rebecca got this call from Brian saying that they were looking for a tailor for this talk show.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca couldn't do it. And so Rebecca, I guess, called my friend Deb, and Deb said, I know this guy, call Matthew. And so my name got from Deb to Rebecca to Brian. That's how it got to CBS.
Amazing.
And then Brian put me in touch with Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And Lee was either still in LA or he had just moved to the city. And we had a great interview over Zoom, like everyone did at that time.
Yep.
I felt like we really connected, and it sounded like a really exciting show. By this point, I knew that it was the Drew Barrymore.
Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah. And so I think I did two interviews with Lee, and then a couple days went by, and I think it was a Friday, like right before the end of the workday, that I got a call back from the original Brian, and he offered me the job and gave me the details. And then we were slated to start like a week and a half later.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was very, very fast. And at that time, the show they were doing some promos out on Long Island at a TV studio out there. So Lee brought just a bunch of pieces of wardrobe to my apartment, dropped them off, and I got them done as fast as I could, so he could take them out and do these promos for the show.
So he just comes with measurements, like he's just like, here's the changes, do it.
Yeah. Things were pinned. I still had not met Drew. Like,
wow.
You're just like, okay, I know who they're for.
Yeah, I knew who they were for, but it was just very wild and very fast, and tailoring by math instead
of by the body.
Everything was math. It was like, these have to be this waist measurement, they have to be this outseam, like the shirt sleeves need to be this length. And so it was a very interesting way of working, like everything was at that time.
Yeah, that sounds super technical.
Yeah. And so I pulled my sewing machine out and I got the first batch of things done in like the first couple days, and sent them out. And then I think he brought another load of things and we got those done. And this was before we even got to go into the studio.
Yeah.
And our getting into the studio kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed because they were putting COVID precautions in place. And like, I had to have 2 COVID tests within a certain amount of time before I could go into the building on one certain day.
Oh my gosh.
And that day kept changing. So I kept having to
do it.
2 COVID tests. And I was like, oh my gosh, like all I'm doing is going to these COVID tests. And this is back
You're like,
when,
I guess this is my job.
Yeah.
yeah. And so this is back when they were like scraping the back of your brain, like
Oh,
really
gosh.
super deep ones.
Yeah, not fun.
Yeah.
So you're just like, okay, the inside of my brain is bleeding, but yeah, I need to get Drew's clothes to her.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm like gruesome.
So we had all of these like it was like a roller coaster trying to get the clothes done, get into the building, get our space set up.
Oh my gosh.
We finally did, and then we started with our the very first thing we did was start with test shows. Like they were filming them, but they were evergreen episodes that aren't really time and space reliant and can be plugged in anywhere. And so I think they used some of those segments in that first season, but it was wild. It was that we had no audience. Our set wasn't finished. There were just very few people. We were all in our zones. So like Lee and I were in a room together. Drew could be in that room. Hair and makeup were in another zone. The crew wasn't like, it was a really wild time.
That sounds surreal.
And this is before we even had vaccines. So we were literally, when she says on the show, we launched in the middle of a pandemic with no audience, like,
which she says a lot.
She says a lot, and it's true. It is. It was the wildest thing trying to build this show from the ground up with nothing around us supporting it. It was just like every day we went to work, and there was that underlying fear that it was like, well, she can't get sick because if she gets sick, we don't have a show.
Yeah.
And if any one of us gets sick, who knows what would happen? Like people were dying left and right.
So much pressure. Yeah.
It was such a small crew.
Yeah. And so on one hand, I was so grateful to have work and have a job. But on the other hand, it was a scary time to be around people. And but it was great to be around people because I hadn't been around people. So it was like all of these wild things in that really first few months of the show. There were a lot of emotions, and it's really I think it's really left an impact on all of us that were there from the beginning.
I feel like that would I hate to use the word trauma bonding.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
But it is like, you had to work siloed, but be a team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like you had to work together, but not be able to be face to face. I imagine most of the time. I mean, both of us did the virtual audience thing that first season.
Yeah.
And it was very weird, but we're like, wow,
they're making it work. Yeah.
It was it's happening. I know there were weird reviews because it was strange. It was strange to do what she was doing, but she was going all in. And I can't imagine.
I can't either. I cannot. Yeah. That's what she was asked to do during that first season, to walk into. Have you been to our show?
I've been to one.
Okay. I haven't been lucky. I went to LA.
So you know how big that studio is.
Yes.
So imagine our studio with no bleachers. That wall was completely empty. We had a green screen set up there, and that's where all the cameras were. So half of our studio was gone.
Was just empty.
Just empty. And they were lighting things and cameras and just that's what filled that space. And so
she had to light up that whole space.
She was asked to go in that giant airplane hangar of a studio. And at that time we were live. We were live too.
Oh, that's right.
And she had to go out there with cameras on her, no audience, no
reciprocal energy.
No energy coming back at her. And so I was like, anybody would be bonkers in that situation. I can't imagine. That's the actor's nightmare, times 1,000. You don't know what you're giving out because you have no awareness of what's coming back at you.
Yeah.
It was what she did during that period of time was truly remarkable. And the fact that we were able to keep going and
thank goodness that there was a chance to like
yes,
try it the other way.
Yes.
She didn't like that didn't have to be the forever.
Right.
Because it's almost making me want to watch like the first season again, just to like remember how weird that was. But when it happened, we were like, oh my God, our girl has a show now. Like, how cool is this?
Yeah.
And then we just get to see her being her forever. We're like, yes, everybody, yes, you should love her. This is her. And you get to all see her be her like amazing, performative, caring, lovely, like to everyone with no feedback, like
with no feedback and no guests. Like every guest we had was like on a Zoom call,
like virtual. I know,
magically hologram.
And the one thing they did really well on our show, because we were a new show they were creating this show during COVID, and so they were able to pivot and say, you know what, we need a video wall. So we can have our audience on the video wall. And so she can sit in a chair and have this guest like larger than life on a Zoom call. So I think they did a really nice job of working through the parameters that we were having to work through using technology, because they were able to pivot and bring that technology into our show, rather than having an established show that you then have to pivot to.
That's true.
Absolutely.
It was so inventive.
It really was.
I want to say one more thing about the technology, just because I'm grateful for some of this stuff. I was in grad school, like when that hit. So gosh. Like all of my schooling went Zoom.
Yeah.
Like it was really nuts. And I got to finish my last year, like coming back, but it was like crawling out of it. We had like some class, but anyway, because of this, because I like learned how to use this, I can have like meetings like this. So I live in Maine,
right,
and Ashley lives in Nevada. So it's like, we're basically as far as we can be apart, being in the same country. You're in New York. We can do things like this. So I was like, oh, I can have a network that is broad and not worry. But yes, of course, I'd much rather be in person, you know, but there's this like wonderful sort of thing that came out of that is like, people can connect from a distance more than they ever really realized they could.
Yeah.
So like, I'm grateful, weirdly grateful for that, even though it's like, yeah, we all went through that and are like still shell shocked about it. And we won't know how it impacted us for many years, probably.
Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting. Speaking of Drew's style on the show, so how involved have you been, you know, throughout this whole time in her like general style each season? Like, we want to hear about like how the collaborations are between like Lee Harris and Drew herself, and like, we were curious. Also, we noticed like each season there seems to be almost like a theme with the way she's dressed, and that Lee kind of like has sort of a, I don't know, like you can almost tell like what's season one based on what she's wearing. And now it's season two is a different vibe. So anyway, if you want to talk about like collaboration and how you're involved.
I am not super involved in the style arc of the show. That was something when the show launched that Drew and Lee had already established what the look of the show is going to be. Kind of that first year was very, kind of harkened back to like the Mary Tyler Moore, that professional newsroom look of the
70s,
that vintagey retro vibe, which she does so well, I think.
Absolutely.
And I feel like a talk show with a female host, there is a certain level of expectation.
For sure.
To what a wardrobe is going to be. A male host, they can just have a navy suit, a gray suit, a black suit, a brown suit, and a whole bunch of different shirts and a whole bunch of different ties, and no matter what they pair with it, it looks like a new outfit. And that is not the case. Not the case when you have a female host, because the expectation, just the societal expectation is.
It's amazing to think of that. But I also, when you said that, I was like, Ross does get to wear some cute stuff, but not as varied as Drew.
Yeah, not as varied as Drew.
You know?
Yeah. And So they had kind of established this look for the season, and they really stuck with that look. I love that look. And you know, she's a very petite gal.
Yeah.
And so she really likes a longer trouser with a super high platform.
Yeah,
Cute.
Always.
And it makes her legs look longer, and it makes her look, and it boosts her up. It makes her taller. And so that's been one theme that has stuck through the seasons. And that's a technique of hers. It works.
I know, because I always think of how tiny she is, but every time I've been around her, she's wearing a high shoe also.
Yeah.
So I'm like, even though she's still tiny, I'm like, she's got like 6-inch platforms under there.
Yeah,
It's like, you know,
illusion.
I know.
Yeah. So I'm involved in the extent that I'm in the workroom when fittings happen. And I can say, maybe we can try it this way, or just
little tweaks
here and there with the fit of things. But pretty much the style arc of the show is set by Lee and Drew.
Well, she's so hands-on with everything.
Oh, very hands-on.
I would imagine she has a very like specific ideas about how she wants things to look, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Which is great. I love when people have a vision.
Yeah.
Because then it feels authentic to that person. I think that's the best with anybody. Come in with a vision of what you want to look like, rather than just having someone like put their vision on you. I think the authenticity of that really works.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's one of the words you hear the most about her, right? She's authentic. Like I feel like the media, everybody picks that up. So that's probably like just one little puzzle piece of that. Can we talk a little bit about some of like your bigger kind of flashier projects? Because you had to recreate some of her most famous on-screen costumes.
I did. Yeah.
The Ever After ball gown. And the Never Been Kissed Josie Grossi prom dress. So what was that like?
Well,
that's a lot.
Yeah. The Josie Grossi came about because if you go back and watch the first couple seasons, there were a couple Josie Grossi segments.
Yeah.
And we had found this pink vintage shiny satin dress that was kind of in the same style, like the same cut, but the fabric was not what she wore in the film. And at that time, they needed a Josie Grossi. We found this. We put some lace on it.
It worked. I can visualize it right now. It totally worked.
Yeah, it totally worked. It looked Josie Grossi enough for what they needed it for the show. But then last year, when we were getting ready for the MTV movie,
whatever they're called now,
whatever they're called, the MTV Awards that she was going to host last year. They wanted to do this Josie Grossi segment, and we knew that the dress we had was not going to cut it, and so I got to create two of them. One is what we call the hero dress, which is the actual like zip up the back, like one that she wore for most of that segment that they filmed. And then there is a tearaway version that is held together by magnets down the back. And
for like quick change.
I think I can tell you this.
Okay.
Without any trouble.
Okay.
But so we filmed this Josie Grossi segment when she was in the bedroom. This was all for the MTV Awards. This was going to be the opening of the show. It was going to be Josie Grossi. And then Drew was through film magic, she was going to be standing backstage to do one last shot before walking on stage in her outfit. And the shot was her in Josie Grossi. And then that dress tore off and it had the first look of her hosting was underneath that.
Oh, how cool.
Oh, that's neat.
It was a very fast, quick change. And then she was going to walk through the door onto stage. And we filmed all of that in New York right before the writer's strike happened.
Yeah.
But that's so interesting to think of, like, you having to make something for like an effect. It's sort of like, okay, we're going to do this thing. So you had to have like a tearaway version. It's funny.
Yeah, the original plan was to make one, which I worked like a couple weeks on. It was living in our studio at CBS. And then like, gosh, it was like the weekend before we shot all the footage here in the city for that opening of the awards. And they were like, we need a tearaway version. I was like, well, a tearaway version of that doesn't exist. And we can't make this new one tearaway. So I spent that whole weekend working in my personal studio and built this one that was held together with magnets, and the skirt was open in the back. So it would literally just
fall off.
She
basically
could pull on the shoulders and it would fall completely off.
That's so cool.
So there are 2 of those now.
And you're like, when are we going to need the tearaway one? We got to use it at some
It's
point.
almost like you need to like use it. You're like,
yeah.
You're like, give us an excuse.
That was a really fun project to dive into because I used a lot of just images that you find by doing like a Google search.
Yeah.
Like, what does this dress look like? And
I know, I wish that we'd known you better. I could have sent you detailed photos because I have one of them.
Yeah. You have a photo of the dress?
No, I have the dress.
You have the dress. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh.
So if you ever need a better look, just
hit
me up. I can get you details.
That is so cool. Yeah, so like just judging from it, I was like, this looks a lot like a 1980s prom or wedding dress.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I used as the basis for it. So I found a vintage Jessica McClintock for gunny sacks sewing pattern, which felt perfect for this project.
Perfect.
And,
puffy sleeves.
And so that's what I really used to build from the waist up part. One thing we ran into was there's not a lot of photographs of what the bottom of the dress looks like. So if you do a Google search for Josie Grossi, everything is like thigh up. And so I was like, well, it's probably a bubble skirt because it's
good instinct.
It's the 80s.
Yeah.
And so we took a little artistic license and we made a 2-tiered bubble skirt bottom. And then I saw a photo of it and it's actually very close to what the original one was.
It's very close.
It is.
I get these assignments. I get these projects to create these things, and the timeline is always very truncated in TV land. They're like, yeah, we need it by like Friday and it's Wednesday.
And it's and you don't like you have like a researcher that works under you that gets all the information. Like you're like, I also have
you
to
are
figure
the
it out.
researcher.
I'm the researcher. Yeah. So Lee and I work together to find those.
Yeah, next time you have to make any kind of Drew costume, like come to us.
Yeah, seriously, we have. I mean, our digital archives are crazy too. We can help you truly
if you ever need it.
You don't have to bother with Google.
That's really good to know.
Yeah. We used to help her old assistants. I don't know if you know Mason.
I don't know.
Okay. He's still in the group here and there, but he used to hit us up all the time. Who's this photographer? Or do you guys have a picture from this? Or and we used to help him all the time. It was really sweet.
Yeah. So like, if that timeline was a little longer, I could have just watched the movie and seen what the bottom dress looked like.
Yeah.
But there's just never time to do that kind of research. And then Ever After was even speedier than that.
Oh my gosh. And it's more detailed.
Yeah. So they were able to secure all of these actors for an Ever After reunion.
Yeah, we loved that.
It was so special.
Which was incredible. And then they were like, we want to recreate a look from the show. And I was like, please don't be the gown. Please don't be the gown, please. Like, and we thought it was going to be her like regular.
Yeah. Her like kind of working. Yeah.
The more Cinderella-esque.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been simpler, right? It's like cotton. It was like more cotton.
Yeah. But it wasn't. I knew it wasn't going to be. I was just hoping. So we actually bought a gown. It was a wedding gown that we used. And it was like an off-white or a white satin, like on pure waist that we used. And it had these puff sleeves on it that were lace. And we used that as the foundation because there was literally not enough time to
start from scratch.
To start from scratch.
Oh my gosh.
So I patterned the bodice and we covered that in this beautiful gold lace that we found. And then we took the puff sleeves off and we added like the beaded lace sleeves. And then we added that trim to give it the neckline where it just gently hugs the shoulders. And then we overlaid the white dress part with like an organza and a layer of chiffon. And then there was another overlay layer that had that split down the front. And we got pretty close to what the gown looked like.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful.
It felt like we were like retrofitting.
Yeah.
Like doing a renovation on a house. It was like,
that's cool. I like that.
Because there were so many things that you were like, okay, can we
Layers.
yeah.
That's so cool.
There are a lot of reference photos of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen, but the costume house that created it, I know Jenny Beavan designed it, but Jane Law, she posted very recently photos of Drew in the original fitting with that dress. Did you see those?
Oh my gosh, I did not see those.
I'll send them to you. It's really cool.
And we were like blown away by it because, as I mentioned, 1988 was kind of a formative Drew year for both of us. And that's Ever After's year. And so we're like crazy for that gown and like just, oh my God.
It's very, impactful as a young girl.
One of those gowns like sold on auction recently, which I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, that's why she was sharing
it. I did see that.
Yeah. And it went for like 20 grand or something. Maybe I can't remember how much it was because it was in pounds.
Yeah, it was 20 grand. Actually, and you know what else I'm going to send you? So we have a friend named Dale who also, he creates miniatures of gowns for movies. He's really into Titanic, but when this one was going on auction, you could go view it. So he created a miniature of it and brought it to the viewing auction house
and took pictures of it next to the original.
Incredible.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like this big.
And you would appreciate the detail work that Dale did on this stuff. I recently looked at it again. And I was just like,
it's unbelievable.
Like he's making like, Barbie size corsets and stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We'll send it to you.
He's so impressive.
He's so cool.
I love that you like, you're in your mind, you're kind of going back to like the project and like thinking about what did you add to make it's so cool to like see you kind of almost like imagining it and like,
see the layers.
And on top of that, we also had to do the other two.
Oh, right.
Oh,
they put everyone in costume.
That's right. Yeah. I forgot that like somebody came in costume and then
Megan Dodds came in and then Drew and Melanie went and changed. Oh my gosh. Right. It was so special. You nailed it. And I feel like it was just very successful all around and very popular and well loved.
That was a really special moment because we worked, Lee and myself, and we brought in 2 other costumers as well. From the city to help get it done because the time frame was just so lickety split, and we had some things rented, I think, from I think some stuff came from Western and some stuff came from Warner Brothers as well for the other costumes that we used for that. And then the wings, though, we found a wing maker on Etsy who.
Oh my gosh, imagine getting that email.
Imagine seeing that box show up.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, they came in this like gigantic
Huge.
box. We're like, well, those must be the wings.
Yeah. It's what else could be that size that needed to stay flat and keep its little edges perfect? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is so fun.
Yeah, so we because we were like, I'm not a wing maker. Lee's not a wing maker. Like we could have figured it out, but yeah, we found someone on Etsy that made those.
How cool.
And they did a beautiful job too.
They did.
These are obviously like formative, amazing things that for us were so special, but are there any, like, do you have personal favorite looks that you've worked on for the show? Or we keep in mind like the Glinda gown that you posted.
Yeah, that one was, that was when I was like, this guy is amazing. That's like when I really took note of you. Like, wow.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's up there as one of the top, because it was also during COVID. And so we couldn't just go to a fabric store.
Oh my gosh.
Everything was ordered. Like it was like I ordered fabric from some online vendor that could get it to us. We had like so many different colors of like tulle coming from like Amazon. Rhinestones came from Amazon. Like the crown came from Amazon. Like it was, I don't know how we would have created that
without a global economy.
Without a global economy, because we couldn't just go to the fabric store in Manhattan because nothing was open.
And find the perfect stuff.
Yeah. And so it was like we'd order something and it'd be right or it wouldn't be, and we'd send it back. And it was just like,
oh my gosh.
That's how that all happened. And I had a big lead time on that because it was such a big project in and of itself. But on top of that, we were still getting caught up on all of her just regular alterations that had to go in, had to be funneled through. So they were ready for the actual show.
Yeah. And then you had this massive like, I love your progress pictures of it.
Yes,
it's like,
they're so cool.
It's so neat to see all that. Like, I don't know if you've shared similar stuff for like the Josie thing or the Ever After gown. I don't know if I've seen that, but it was so cool to see. And like, you even had a picture of you like cutting the tulle. I was like, this is so neat for someone who like wants to understand the technical part of what you do. Like, I love that you share some of that. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah. So Lee really handed that over to me to make happen. I mean, within parameters, like everyone knows what the Glinda costume has to look like. And so it was really just it's like this is what we're doing. So
have fun.
So make it. and so I really leaned into my background in dance costuming, because that's basically what that costume is. It's built on a ballet type bodice, and it's a gigantic tulle skirt.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it that way, but that totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's just that like blown up, basically.
yeah. And it's really the hoop skirt underneath it that gives it that very flat, very wide look that's so iconic of that costume. And so that was really up there. I love getting to work on her birthday gowns, and when we do the Oscar,
some of the best.
This year's birthday gown was really special.
We died over that.
That's way up there for like one of our favorite dresses she's ever worn.
And when we got the issue of Drew magazine and it was on the cover, we were like,
yes, some more of this dress.
Glad. Like, that was a beautiful gown.
Stunning.
How much did you have to do to that?
I had to do quite a bit of work, because it's made for someone tall, and And Drew had on very, very tall shoes under
Oh,
there.
that's right. Those like crazy silk pink
Yeah.
shoes. Yeah.
But she had these amazing shoes on under it to boost her height up. But it's also like she's not just standing on a red carpet, so you can't have, for her safety, you can't just have a dress like puddling on the floor because she has to walk. She has to get out of the building and into the Wienermobile. And it's not like she just put the dress on and is sitting in a chair and doing the whole episode. Like she was actively moving. And that's one thing that I'm always try to be conscientious about, that anytime we're shortening something, I don't want it to be too long that she
trips on it.
Because that means I failed.
But that's such a fine line, because she does like things so long. You were talking about like, you know, the long trousers that like they cover her shoes like a lot of times because she likes them so long, it seems like. So it is amazing. And I think about how physical she is too. Yeah. And so like you talked about how when you were, I just am going back in my mind to how you said like in learning ballet costuming, it's like, it's all about that movement. So like that skill, you're literally saying it comes into play with Drew, because it's not just a walk and stand.
She's never going to be that person.
She's never a walk and stand kind of girl on our show.
No.
Or in life, really.
Yeah. She's got to fly around her desk and whatever.
Yeah. And so my goal as the tailor is to always make her feel comfortable and safe in whatever she's wearing. I don't want zippers to break. I don't want hooks and eyes to come apart. I don't want there to ever be a wardrobe malfunction on something that she's wearing that I worked on. And so I try to be very conscientious of that. And it comes into like, you know, always the closures, always the lengths of things, because that would be mortifying.
Absolutely.
For me as the person that was responsible for doing the work, but also like, you know, that's would be awful for her as well. And I never want my work to put her in that position.
Yep. And it makes sense that you feel the pressure, but it also, it should like the technical work, like your knowledge about like what works, and you're clearly good at it. Otherwise you wouldn't still be there. And it's like you, and you know, that's that thing of like, you know, as an archivist, there are certain things that I care about that other people don't have to think about, you know, like, so you have those things that you have to think about that are your job. And this just happens to be something that's like her comfort, her safety.
Totally.
Right. And I wouldn't even think about that, you know, Anne, but like, it's so cool that you're so conscientious about that. And
like part of your job is that.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah.
But that comes with some anxiety that like, you know, genuinely you're like, you have to learn how to get it right. I just love into the nitty gritty of like what people's jobs, like that's rewarding because you've gotten it right. You know, it's like, if, you know, you would know pretty quickly if it wasn't for you.
Sure. Of course. Yeah.
I noticed on your website that you've actually also worked on a lot of her like red carpet looks or just events or photo shoots. And I was really excited to see that cool giant yellow gown that she wore as a flower girl for Ross's wedding.
Flower girl dress. Yeah.
That's so cool. Did she already have that picked out? Did Lee help find that, or?
I think Lee found that. We try to keep a stock of like red carpet things in our arsenal because the way appearances go, the lead up time is
short.
Everything's always short. Like there's never like, oh, this is happening in 6 months and we like it's always lickety split. And so we try to have some things up our sleeve.
Yeah, I love that.
To make those go faster, so you're not waiting on something to arrive through FedEx or UPS or DHL.
Yep.
And so that was one that Lee found, and then we did a fitting for it, and that one was made if I remember correctly, that gown had a very, very long torso to it before I got my hands
to
on
it.
And so I had to do, I remember having to do a lot of work in the shoulders to get the length of the torso kind of down in our down in
the
our
range for Drew.
range. Yeah.
The little petite size.
Yeah, which is always a challenge.
Yeah.
When you're taking something, especially something like that, that's so delicate, and when you're taking that apart and just taking sleeves off and taking inches out and then having to get it all back in and
oh my gosh,
make it look like nothing was done to it. Like that's always the goal.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Your goal is to like make it look like you didn't do anything.
Yeah. You know that every so often that meme comes up where it's like, describe what you do for a living poorly. And mine is always, I take things apart and put them back together, making them look like I didn't do anything to it. That's
a skill.
That always makes me laugh, but that is the goal of what I do.
I love the idea of that. Just like, I love those things because I think of like ways to describe other jobs that are just like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Like if I think of an archivist job, it's to protect something for eternity and make it look like it never aged.
Right.
It's like, what are the things? Yeah. It's like just making yourself invisible is one of your jobs. Like that's so
kind of amazing.
But that's so neat.
Yeah, it is. That was a really fun one to work on. And it was just really special because it was Ross's wedding.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that it was going to be so featured.
Like in People magazine.
In People magazine.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the coolest parts of my job that I still kind of pinch myself. Like
the fact that she's a massive star and suddenly something you did will be
the fact that she's a massive star, and to me she's just my pal Drew at work.
That
we have a very friendly relationship, and but then I'll be sitting at home on my couch and then she'll show up on TV in a Bingo Blitz commercial and I'm like, oh, I've done that. And
that's so cool.
That's when it's like, it's those moments, or when I see her on the cover of People magazine wearing clothes that I worked on, and clothes that Lee styled that we've seen from the very beginning, and now it's on
the cover of a magazine.
The cover of a magazine. That's when I still pinch myself and say, is this really my life? Is this really what I'm doing? And
that's so cool.
Like my grandma was right. It did pay off.
Oh, I love that. And I always notice they're really good about crediting you, which I don't feel like I see. I'm not paying attention to that many other people, but I feel like it's really cool that they make sure you get a credit on a lot of these like bylines.
It is very nice to get the shout outs, because that doesn't always happen. I've worked freelance on fashion shoots, and like where you're doing the same work, often in a very, very fast atmosphere. And like you make it work, they take photos of it, and then you never really get credited beyond that. And so that becomes my job to take photos of that I can then use and kind of self-promote that way. But it is nice to get that tailored by credit.
I'm always like,
you're like, I did do that. Like that's
that's
nice.
I'm not invisible.
Yeah, because it's no secret. It may be a secret, but I'm telling you now, it's no secret that stars, that celebrities, that models don't just walk in and put on a red carpet look, put on a tuxedo, put on whatever they wear on TV. Like
everything is tailored.
They don't just walk into those clothes. Like there's a lot of work that goes on before they even get to put those on, like with the stylist doing so much shopping, like putting these looks together, and then the tailor or tailors, the team of people that it often takes to really make people look amazing on a red carpet. Like there are a lot of hands involved before that look gets in front of a camera. And so people may not know that, but
I think a lot of people don't think about it, but
we've thought about it primarily because we're thinking of which people she works with over and over again, whether it's makeup or clothing or whatever it is. And so we go like, oh, and she's always championed like that behind the scenes work. Like when she talked about, you know, her makeup line, it was like, yeah, I've been in the makeup chair. I have all this knowledge, and all of these people around me have taught me all this, getting me ready to like do my acting job. Like you have to.
Well, she never takes credit for anything by herself.
That's true. She's like, it's like you have to look the part to feel the part, right? So it's like she recognizes that people get her ready. She walks in her sweats and walks on stage in this incredible thing, and it's just her team. I think she champions her team so beautifully. That's at least the sense that we get.
She really does.
We're also paying so much attention, but
right.
But it's wonderful. And I'm like, I love hearing that you're like, yeah, it's my pal Drew. Because sometimes we're like, we know she's a massive star. We came into this as fans of a massive star, and we still are. And yet when we've been able to be around her, it doesn't feel like there's a massive star presence. It feels like, oh, it's just Drew.
Yeah.
Like when I've been around her and someone else is with me that hasn't met her before, I'm like, don't be nervous. Like she's just,
she's just Drew.
She's just normal. Like it was, you know, and of course, Ashley and I've been very lucky that we've been given some access that other people might, because we're a trusted like group of fans at this point. But it's interesting. Just Drew's personality is so approachable and friendly, and like, again, like that championing of like, what is your thing that you're passionate about? And I want you to like love that and care about that. I don't know. It's so cool to like, when you say your pal Drew, we're like, I get it.
Yeah, we totally get it.
Yeah.
We've heard enough people say that kind of thing. Like, she's friendly. Like everyone's her friend.
Yeah.
Going back to the wardrobe a little bit, because we were just curious, is there anything that you know about season 5's like clothing vibe that you can share, or is that still not?
Do you get that much notice?
I have heard nothing. I know that we have a shoot day sometime in July where we get a lot of the integrated marketing segments done early so that those can be ready to go for the first part of the season. But beyond that, I really have no idea. Like, I have no idea
what's coming,
what the conversations have been, what's coming my way. The look has evolved. We kind of started in like it felt like a very 70s vibe. Mm-hmm. And then
felt like Annie Hall kind of.
I feel like we've moved into a little more this past season than the previous season into the blazers.
Yeah.
And that feels like we're tipping our hat to the 80s a little bit. So I really don't know I have no idea what
that's exciting.
I know, like for all of us.
I feel like we're gonna stay in that vein a little bit, because she looks so good in those suits.
Yeah.
That I really love Gabriella, her suits that she wears. Those fit her so well. And they really just give her this beautiful like feminine silhouette, but it's a suit and it's a very tailored look and it feels very professional. And I personally really like the way she looks in those. And like, I feel like that's a power suit like that.
She does really. And I love that she wears those suits, and like I'm just keep thinking about comfort. Like she's on the couch with her legs crossed in those suits, and like, you know, somehow still just it's like she is the host of the show. She is like in control. She's professional, and yet she's still Drew, and she can comfortably cross her legs. And yeah, like she's got the long pants. So it just feels. Yeah, it's interesting for us also like to look at like the eras of her career, and it's like she's definitely in her like professional woman era, and yet she's still Drew. So like seeing those like the visual indicators of her maturity are really interesting, even though she's still Drew. I just love that. So I can see the appeal of like she's almost 50, but she's young at heart, Drew, her whole life. You know?
It's crazy. Like I think I'm 2 years younger than Drew. And so I've spent my entire life like E.T. was the first movie I saw in the movie theater.
Oh my gosh,
so, like,
amazing.
It's wild, like, to be working with this person that you've like known of my whole life. Like that, that is one of the very exciting, and that's another pinch me part of my job is like
totally she's a legend.
Yeah.
That
like,
girl, that's what we always do. That girl is that girl?
the same one. Like, and I love when she says things like, I've grown up with everyone, because people know, and it is true. So I think that's like, we relate to her because we've seen her go through her entire life, and she still is that. She's the same person, the same, like, you know, she's not like telling a new story. We know her story, and yet, I love that.
Are there any other like little fun little anecdotes, or just, I mean, I feel like you've really given us the vibe of what it's like working for her, but anything else fun you want to share?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I truly love this job. Like it is, I can't think of a more perfect job for me and for the skills that I bring to the table. Like I get to use my tailoring brain. I get to use my creative costuming skills, and you know, I get to put my background in theater to use, and like how does this costume, or how does this outfit need to move on her. And so this job, I feel so lucky because I've not really had a real job my entire life. Like I've been a performer, and then like it still doesn't feel like a real job. I come to work and I sew these amazing costumes and sew these amazing clothes. So it doesn't feel like a real job, but I get paid to have fun at work and
amazing
use these skills on these really great clothes that Lee picks out, and every once in a while I get to create some really fantastic fun costumes. So
feels very meant to be.
It does feel very meant to be, and that's why I feel like, after I told the story of how I got the job, that's why I feel like it was, I don't know if it was predestined or if there was some fate involved, or I don't know, maybe my grandma was up there being like, pulling some strings for me. I don't know.
You landed and you went like, oh, this is where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I love that feeling, and I understand that feeling. Like you know, it's nice when you get there and you go like, oh yeah,
it all makes sense.
I know how to do all parts of this. Like all parts of this are like, I've been practicing them, not knowing what I was practicing them for.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
It's
like
so beautiful.
What the practice and preparation like leads to. And you know, and if you don't know something, you figure it out. And
yeah.
There's bound to be a YouTube video about
absolutely.
We just started podcasting with like, we better just start. We don't need to really know what we're doing. Let's just start. We'll figure it out. And we do it all by ourselves. And that's what we do.
And we're like over 80 episodes in.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be like episode 82. So we're just like, we'll figure it out. We have like all of this random knowledge, that we happen to have in our brains, let's use it. And so when you get to use those things that you're both passionate about and are good at, and come, I don't know, it's just beautiful when people find those things. And so I love hearing that you're like, it doesn't feel like a job, and yet I'm employed. And this I get to go in and do that thing, and feels amazing. And being linked to someone like Drew, where it's like, you're forever going to be grateful, hopefully, for that time where you're like, I got to do that for Drew Barrymore. You not only got to do that job with amazing clothing and amazing like creative opportunities and all that, but for her.
Pretty cool. Pretty freaking cool.
Like your work and those bylines will be in an archive. It's just like kind of cool to think about it that way.
Yeah.
I want to thank you again, like, for being here, Matthew.
Yeah, this is so sweet of you to give us your time like this.
Thanks for having me. This
Absolutely.
is so great.
Yeah, this is so cool.
You've been on our dream guest list since the beginning. We literally have a list, and your name has been on there. I'm not kidding.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and like I said, like Ashley's so good about finding you people. So thank you for being responsive and like giving your time to us.
Yeah, very welcoming.
Okay, Matthew, the last thing we have for you is there anywhere online where our listeners can find you if you want them to find you online and see your work?
Well, I'm on the Instagram, and that's probably the best place. It's at Matthew Kilgore, 2 T's, 1 L. Yeah.
I love that. And we'll, of course, link to it.
Yeah. Perfect.
And thank you again so much for your time. And if you have any photos that you want us to include, we always do an episode gallery.
Okay.
But if you have anything in particular that you want us to share or showcase, just send it over and we'll be sure to give you credit for it.
We love this stuff. We just love all these details.
Yeah, we're like, gobble it up.
Yeah.
And we're going to be back in like less than 2.5 months.
Amazing. I can't wait.
Season 5. So,
we'll be watching. Yes. Thank you again, Matthew.
Thank you both. So good to meet you.
Great to meet you too. Hope to talk again soon.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, that was really cool. Thank you, Matthew. We are so honored that he would come to us with so much time and amazing information and beautiful stories, and just a lovely person.
Yes. And I hope you all got some fun insight on, like, we didn't know really much at all about this industry or how it works. So that was fun to learn all that from him. And also just, again, we hear like she's just like a friend to these people who work with her. And yet she is Drew Barrymore. And you realize that, and you come out of it knowing she's Drew Barrymore. And then you're like, oh yeah, she's Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, it reminded me of how I told you on that makeover episode recently that Ross was like, whoa, usually you're just my friend Drew, and now you're like a superstar.
Yes. And I feel like Matthew said something like, yeah, at work, she's just like my pal, Drew.
Yeah, so sweet.
Yeah, this was just another celebration of Drew and her team and the people who make her just able to do what she does. And yeah, here we are to keep championing those people.
Yeah, love it. You guys can follow Matthew once again on his Instagram account at Matthew Kilgore. We will link to it on the episode page as well. And we'll also link to it on our Instagram, which is at How Do You Drew Pod. And you can also follow us at Drewsium for non-pod, but still Drew related content. And then don't forget about rating and reviewing and subscribing. I have noticed we've been getting, some more star reviews on Spotify. So thanks to people. You can only leave written reviews on Apple Podcasts. So if you have an iPhone, that's there for you. Go do it.
Yes, please do. Also, all this stuff on the web we're talking about, visit our website, howdoyoudrew.com. For every episode, we have an episode page, this one included. Literally every one that we release, there's a page with some great gathering of images from our archive or from, this topic. Like, we're gathering the stuff for you to check out. So enjoy. Sign up for our Patreon.
Patreon.com/howdoyoudrew.
Yeah, be like Brian.
Yes. Also, don't forget to send listener mail to howdoyoudrewpod@gmail.com. And I think that's all for now, you guys. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Check out our social media to see when our episodes come out.
Should be every 2 weeks. Should be Poison Ivy. Should be tentatively.
I'm almost like I want to bleep out every time we say the episodes that are coming up.
Drew's Day is whenever we say it is.
Yes. Okay, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This episode of the How Do You Drew podcast was researched and produced by Ashley and Ann from thedrewseum.com with help from our sponsor, Positive Medium.
Special thanks to Matt Costa for our lovely theme song, Roxy Prima for our adorable logo, and last but not least, Drew Barrymore and all the Drewbies who love her. We do this for you.
Thank you.